Hi, I'm Dana Shoaf, editor of Civil War Times magazine. I hope you're all enjoying the nicer, cooler fall weather after this really hot summer, especially the way it was in the mid-Atlantic states. Today I brought in one of the few items I have in my Civil War collection. This is a revolver, obviously, that has a couple interesting points to it. One, it's an example of the advance of technology at the time of the Civil War, and secondly, it's an example of war profiteering. Anytime there's a war, there are manufacturers that will make items to sell to the military and the soldiers to try to make money, and the Civil War was no exception to that rule. This gun was manufactured by a man by the name of William Uhlinger, U-H-L-I-N-G-E-R. Uhlinger was a gunsmith in Philadelphia who basically ripped off technology that was being used by the Smith & Wesson Firearms Company without their permission. He used some of their design concepts in the production of this pistol. To try to avoid detection from patent attorneys, Uhlinger actually had this gun marketed under 4 different names besides his own. One of those was D.D. Cone, C-O-N-E. And I know it's probably too hard to make out on this dark grip, but this cone marked on the rosewood grip here, indicating it was marketed under that name. Eventually, the patent attorneys caught up with Uhlinger and shut him down. So these revolvers were only made between 1861 and 1865. About 10,000 of them were made. Most of them looked similar to this. They varied slightly in models, but only about 10,000 were made overall. Now, in addition to being an example of war profiteering, this gun, as I said, also represents the march of technology during the Civil War period. It did not use the separate percussion cap, gunpowder, and bullet of percussion revolvers. Instead, it used brass cartridges, like this one here. This cartridge is a blank round. If it was live, you would see a bullet projecting beyond the end of it. But it does have gunpowder in it, and within the raised rim of this cartridge, there's a compound that when pressure is applied to it will spark or pop, which will discharge the cartridge and of course fire the gun. So that's why it's called a rimfire revolver. And if I hadn't mentioned, this is a .32 caliber revolver. It fires 6 shots. To load it, the user would first bring it back to the position, the loading position of the hammer, which frees the cylinder to rotate. Then the user would insert 6 of these brass cartridges in the cylinder. Bring the hammer back to the next position, which is half cock. That locks the cylinder in place and acts as a safety. The gun won't discharge when the hammer is in that position. At full cock, the gun is ready to fire. The trigger would be pulled, the hammer would come down with sufficient force to strike the rim of that cartridge, popping or sparking that compound inside, causing the gun to fire. Now obviously .32 caliber is not that large, so this gun was marketed to perhaps officers that wanted a weapon to carry in a holster on their belt, a personal protection weapon to use if things got tough. After all, officers really weren't supposed to fire themselves, they were supposed to direct others to shoot, so they really wouldn't need this unless they were in a desperate position. Perhaps men in the ranks might have bought a gun like this when they went off to war, thinking that they needed an extra weapon, some extra firepower. Many of those pistols, however, were discarded by the men after the first few hard miles of marching. And I'm sure had I served during the Civil War, I would have probably done that with mine. So let us know if you have any Civil War weapons in your collection. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.